Call the meeting to order. This is the Zebulon Board of Commissioners meeting 4/4/22. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Baxter, would you lead us?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we will have approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I have three things to add. I have three things to add, Mayor.
Okay.
And it can be lumped under just a commissioner request for action or information unless you need me to specifically list all of them. And I'm not sure if any of the other commissioners have anything to add. No? Okay, then do you prefer me to list them, or would you just like to put it under information request?
You would like to put it under information requests?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
We need to amend the agenda, sir. We need to amend the agenda.
Amend the agenda
Yes.
for,
Did you want to put it under new business?
Yes, it would be under new business.
new business.
We also need to amend the agenda under old business planning. We added ordinance 2022-36 for the rezoning. For fire, it should read fire EMS station. We have the memorandum of understanding, and then ordinance 2022-35 for the site evaluation. And under closed session, we need to add A3 to consult with our town attorney. So it should read as permitted by NCGS 143-318.11, A3 and A6 for the purpose of consulting with the town attorney and personnel discussions.
So can we put the request for action and information under new business C?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you've heard the amendments.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. School recognition. Joshua Cooper? Is he here?
I believe it's Jashawn?
Oh, sorry. They changed your name. Oops, forgot my sheet. Student recognition, Jashawn, am I saying that right? Okay. Malachi Cooper is the son of Jamie Harrell and Jermaine Cooper. Like so many students, Jashawn has had a hard time adapting to and engaging in online learning due to the pandemic. But he has been an inspiration this year since returning to school in person. Jashawn has been extremely focused this year, and his hard work has paid off tremendously. Last semester, he He made A's in his classes, and he is also doing exceptionally well this semester. He has also been a model student this year, and we couldn't be prouder of his progress and maturity he has shown since returning to campus. The town of Zebulon recognizes Jashawn Cooper of Eastwake High School for being an overall outstanding student. He is a role model to other students. April 4th, 2022, signed by the Mayor, Glenn L. York. Thank you. Next, we recognize teacher, Edward Thomas. Mr. Thomas serves as the Science Department Chair at Eastwake High School. In June of this year, Mr. Thomas will be retiring from the Eastwake Public School System. Mr. Thomas has served the students of Wake County Public School System for 17 years. Mr. Thomas has set himself as a leader in the school district by obtaining some of the highest biology scores and growth in the Wake County Public School System. Mr. Thomas is a science teacher that colleagues around the school district strive to model after. Mr. Thomas is greatly appreciated and will be sorely missed after his retirement. Eastwake High School wanted to let Mr. Thomas know how important and how special he is to the success of students and staff. The town of Zebulon recognizes Edward Thomas of Eastwake High School for 17 years of dedication to the field of education service to his students. April 4th, 2022, signed by the Mayor, Glenn L. York. Next, we'll have some more recognitions. On March 25th, we had 2 employees with GFL who stepped up when it was needed and would like to take this opportunity to recognize them. Would Adrian Wall and Braxton Moore please come to the podium? I don't know if some of you may have kept up with the news, but these folks were involved in saving a citizen's life last Friday. And we just wanted to take the opportunity out to let you guys know how much we appreciate your service, because things like that don't happen every day. And for you to react and do what you did is very complimentary, and we appreciate that. This proclamation is a recognition of life-saving efforts for the Green for Life employees. Whereas on March 25th, Adrian Wall and Braxton Moore employees of the Green for Life were running their routes in Zebulon in the Braemar subdivision. And whereas while they were working to complete their route, they witnessed a citizen collapse in the driveway. Whereas Adrian and Braxton jumped out of the truck to assist Tracy Bulger, who was having an asthma attack after it was taking her cans to the road. Whereas the employees of Green for Life did not hesitate to help the citizen in distress by retrieving an inhaler for Tracy from her vehicle with the help of her son, Brandon. The gentleman stayed with Tracy until she was able to stand up and walk back to her home. The town of Zebulon is proud to do business with Green for Life, a company whose employees are not afraid to step up and help a person in need. Now, therefore, the Zebulon Board of Commissioners, we want to recognize and thank Adrian Wall and Braxton Moore, employees of Green for Life, for life-saving aid provided to Zebulon citizen Tracy Bulger. Signed this date, 4th day of April, 2022, Mayor Glenn L. York.
Glenn,
Thank you, gentlemen.
he has plaques to present to you. He has plaques to present to them as well.
Patrick, Brandon Bolden.
We also have a recognition for Brandon Bulger. Whereas Brandon and his family live in Zebulon Broadmoor subdivision, and whereas March 25th, 2022, Tracy Bulger, Brandon's mother, was taking their cans out to the road and collapsed in the driveway. And whereas Green for Life employees jumped from their truck to give Tracy, who was having an asthma attack and needed help, and was a very brave young man that gained access to her vehicle to retrieve her inhaler. Due to the quick action of Brandon and the Green for Life employees, Tracy was able to get her breathing under control, walk back to her home unassisted. Now whereas, Zebulon Board of Commissioners want to recognize Brandon Patrick Bulger for his quick action and life-saving aid provided to his mother, Tracy. Signed this 4th day of April, 2022, Mayor Glenn L. York. Now I think we have recognition from their employer,
Yes, Nick Zepp.
Nick Zepp.
You can step over there. It's made for me.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for letting us serve the town of Zebulon for as long as we have, and we're going to continue to be partners. I would like to take this opportunity to continue to thank Adrian and Braxton for their heroic acts in saving a life, and in this time and age, you know, a lot of people have reasons why not to get involved, and these two fine gentlemen stepped up, and they stepped up big, and they saved someone's life from it. So myself, my boss, the regional vice president, we would like to thank Adrian and Braxton We had special plaques made, and a check for $1,000 and a $100 gift card to 42nd Street.
I just want to cry. It just fills me up.
Public hearing. We will now have a public hearing to gather information on the topic of alcohol beverage consumption in public right-of-ways. This is not a public hearing of debate, to debate the topic, but the board and staff is here merely to listen and to gather information from the public, which we will be discussing at a later date. This will be the process for the public hearing. Staff will present answers, will answer questions that the public may have. The public will have the opportunity to come to the podium to the left, and share their comments to the following guidelines. Each person will have 5 minutes to speak. There will be a timer that will count down where there are 30 seconds left, and then the light will turn yellow and then beep. When your time is up, it will turn red and beep again. If there is a group that has the same viewpoint and it wants to recommend have one person to speak in their behalf of that group, they will have a total of 8 minutes to speak, and no speaker can give their minutes to another speaker, and the mayor has absolute ability to limit the total times in the public hearing. Is there a group at some point that would like to have someone to speak for a group? Hearing none. I declare this public hearing open and ask for staff presentation, the staff to present.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I don't know how I'm going to follow all that recognition. It's a wonderful thing, but I'll try to do my best. So tonight before you is a public hearing. Please note that this is for information only, and the staff is not recommending any decision tonight. A couple months ago, we had a retreat, and during that retreat, one of the questions came about was how does the public feel about the idea of being able to consume beverages within the public right-of-way, whether it's part of just immediately adjacent to an establishment that already had an ABC permit, or the possibly broader context of a social district. A survey was put out, and there was 3 questions to this survey. Tonight we're going to talk about questions 1 and 2. 3, it will be up for discussion at a later time. The first question of the consumption of alcoholic beverages should only occur inside a building or on private property. The majority of those who responded indicated that they were in disagreement with this particular statement. Question number 2 took it a step further. It's asked, should patrons be able to consume alcohol beverages in the public areas adjacent to an establishment? These responses were as of last Wednesday, and only 17% indicated that they were in disagreement or were indifferent. The remaining percentage actually indicated that they were either agreeing or, in this case, 54% strongly agreed. That provided enough direction for staff to further explore the possibilities of an ordinance amendment. And in terms of context of where these respondents came, the program that we used for an online survey allowed us to look pretty broadly. While we did have some respondents coming from New York, Washington, even the great state of Ohio, the majority of them did come from North Carolina. As we zoom in tighter, we see that it did come from a pretty broad region, but the overwhelming majority, over 400 of the respondents, were specifically indicated they had a Zebulon zip code. So the proposed text amendment that's before you tonight would allow for, or would amend section 130.01 of the Code of Ordinances. It would allow for somebody to consume alcoholic beverages on the sidewalk as well as the adjacent right-of-ways. Most important thing of note, the proposed regulations do not create a social district. It only allows for alcohol consumption immediately adjacent to an establishment that has a valid ABC permit, be it the public right-of-way or adjacent public areas. To provide a bit of context of what this amendment would do, in particular the adjacent sidewalk areas, we do have establishments within town that are going to be occupied by establishment or businesses that serve alcohol. In this context, where Eno Neo would be going in at the corner of Horton and Arundel, the green area in front of the building, located here, would be areas that they could put up tables and allow patrons to consume alcohol if the regulations were approved. The areas right next door, where the Pause for the Cause building, would not be open for consumption unless a business owner had an ABC permit, and then it's only their patrons that would be allowed to consume alcohol in that area. But it's not just about alcohol establishments. It's also about restaurants. Hypothetically, if an Italian restaurant went into a vacant space that was recently renovated, they were able to get an ABC permit, and they put out tables in front. They would be allowed to have service within the green area, but not within the red areas. And then we have situations in town where we have these shared spaces, these other public areas that are not sidewalks, but other spaces. As an example, the Fall Line, if this text amendment were approved, they would be allowed to have patrons consume within this area. And hypothetically, let's say a restaurant were able to come into town and locate in 120 North Arundel, located here. I say this because we do have interest from business owners in potentially doing that exact thing. That business owner would be able to utilize this green area, but being that they're also adjacent to another public area, the blue area in the middle would become a shared space where both of the businesses would be able to allow for their patrons to either dine with a beverage or consume alcohol from the Fall Line. It's also worth noting that this isn't just about establishments that only serve alcohol. This is an economic development tool. It really goes towards restaurant recruitment. We hear repeatedly that downtown Zebulon needs additional restaurants, especially fine dining opportunities. Things, okay, maybe not fine dining, but Salem Street Pub is an example within the downtown Apex area. They have this exact setting, and they actually have sidewalks similar in nature to ours. They're able to have outdoor dining, and as you can see from the picture, it's full of families. It's not people out to get drunk and party, but it's actually people coming together and gathering to break bread. It also allows for areas, ADA accessible areas, to maneuver throughout the corridor and still have that small, intimate space and have visibility outside. It also really goes towards downtown vibrancy. And this is not just something in older neighborhoods, but as an example, in downtown Holly Springs, where they're building their downtown, they made sure that they had these regulations in place to allow for outdoor dining. This was a scene from last Friday afternoon where there's several folks outside having sandwiches. Some of them have an alcoholic beverage, some of them don't. But you had a combination of adults as well as children outside dining in this location as well. It's also about visual activity. As an example, the corner of 3rd Street in Maine in downtown Wendell, as an example. For a while, there was a restaurant here, and they didn't have a very large tenant space. So they were able to bring some of their seating out. We have a similar context here in downtown Zebulon, where we have buildings that are between 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. They also require a substantial amount of investment. Well, as an opportunity to offset some of the costs necessary to bring these buildings in compliance, they're going to be looking for ways to maximize their seating opportunity. What better way than to allow for outdoor dining with a beverage on the sidewalk to expand their total capabilities? And it's not just here in the Triangle. As an example, in New Bern, this restaurant has a similar situation. We're able to sit outside, have dinner, and a glass of wine. The same with Wilmington. The same with downtown Raleigh. And there's actually emerging trends going this direction. As we heard last week, the city of Raleigh's city council actually changed the laws to even take it a step further and allow for the parking areas that they had designated during COVID to be designated as permanent parking spaces. What started as a pilot test program to address a particular situation that prohibited indoor dining showed such demand that the city of Raleigh changed their regulations, and it was picked up by several media sources. And not only is it shown as a need now, but even the downtown Apex plan indicates that they're going to have this outdoor dining capabilities. So to summarize what these regulations do and do not do is as such. The proposed regulations do not create a social district. A patron will not be able to purchase a beverage from an establishment and walk down the street to adjacent or neighboring businesses. What it does do, however, is it allows for consumption of these beverages on the sidewalks. It also allows for using adjacent public areas for consumption when a business is located adjacent. The staff recommendation is for tonight to obtain public comment. There will be several folks that will be coming up to speak to express their thoughts and suggestions regarding the proposed text amendments. If necessary, hold a second public hearing to give folks additional opportunity to speak. And following that, take action on the proposed regulations, whether it's to approve them or to deny them, but making sure that you can take actions. And we also did work on this with the town's police chief, so I'll ask Jackie Boykin to come up as well.
Good evening. How's everybody tonight?
All right.
Clearly, the police department would be tasked or is tasked with enforcing any of the local ordinances here in town. As with any law, we have a philosophy in our approach to how we would address new laws or how we address existing rules, ordinances that the public just generally doesn't know about. And our philosophy is to educate, warn, and then cite. Our existing ordinance puts some burden on the police department. There's a natural flow to socialization, particularly in post-COVID regulation times. I think our citizens became very accustomed to being able to socialize outside and to dine outside, and that has become the expectation. So now the natural flow is to step out onto the sidewalk go up to a food truck, or to use the common space there next to the fall line as an example. Our calls for service have increased 100% in the first 3 months of 2022 as compared to the last 3 years in the same time period. And there's a burden on the police department to try to manage the existing ordinance. I think the proposed regulation change, or the proposed ordinance change, is more intuitive and would be more inviting to our community and cause less impact on the officers in terms of having to enforce a regulation that is not intuitive.
And I'm available, and Chief Boykin is available if you have any questions.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we receive any written comments?
Yes, sir, we did. It says, with respect to should downtown restaurants and other establishments be permitted to serve alcoholic beverages immediately adjacent to their facilities, and attending the public hearing, I was unable to do so. I have read the markup of the draft changes to the ordinance. I fully support the changes as written. Thanks, Tom Schmidt, owner of Schmidt Auto Services, LLC, doing business as Victory Lane. Quick oil change, 131 Wakeland Street, Zebulon, North Carolina, 27597.
Do we have any other online comments?
No, sir.
Now I will ask if anyone wishes to speak on this topic, please come to the podium. Remember to state your name, address for the record. To the podium on the left, right.
Hello, my name is Cyrus Stacy. Myself and Mike Lombardo are co-owners of the Fall Line, which has been brought up several times here. In addition to that, we own the lots on 114 and 116 North Avenue Avenue. From the beginning of our project, we tried to be very transparent with the town and be collaborative and come and bring unmet need to the town. It seems like right now, we are probably, the business is going to be impacted by this decision the most. However, I can tell you that, as the other two presenters have said, since we've been open, there's been a significant increase in other businesses, food being eaten there, so the public is enjoying that in addition to our beverages there. And I think what it really comes down to is that, we want to continue to work with the town in a compliant manner. And I think the concern is that, as the officer stated, that we're putting our patrons and your citizens in kind of a tight spot because of the intuition to eat and be outside. And we really just want to look towards, working towards you. And since this has been open, we have actually maintained the area in a very compliant manner. I think everybody's enjoying it. Like I said, our major goal is just to come up with a solution where our patrons and your citizens can be compliant and enjoy the space. I think it's a great opportunity for the town.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. My name is Zebulon, a local resident in Weavers Pond, a wife, mother, business owner, and downtown building owner. I've come here tonight to voice my concern over the lack of dedication to our town's economic development. In regards to the proposed changes to the 130.1 consumption of alcoholic beverages on town property, the verbiage works. What does not is that it does not inspire a cohesive, vibrant downtown. The proposed text stating public sidewalks and other public areas immediately adjacent to establishments with approved ABC permit, but not to include on-street parking areas, crosswalks, or travel lanes without prior authorization by the town of Zebulon, shows that we are only looking to the bare minimum and not strive for something greater. In the recent survey conducted by and having more responses than in our latest elections only further proves this point. With over 600 responses, the desire to create a more attractive downtown that will draw visitors and more businesses to the area comes through in the comments. 59% think that you should be able to consume alcoholic beverages outside. 83% think you should be able to consume alcoholic beverages adjacent to an establishment. The responses overwhelmingly come back in favor to allow those utilizing our downtown to also be able to use adjacent spaces. I will say, in looking over the questions again, I would suggest the following survey that focuses more on what a social district means. The questions asked were extremely vague and did not explain well what we are working to create. I would be remiss if I did not also note a true social district with a created boundary and set hours to enjoy our downtown would allow our area to flourish. In looking at other already approved social districts in North Carolina, it allows their downtowns to be fully walkable, engaging, vibrant, and lively. When looking at Hickory and Greensboro, for example, since their social districts have started, they have had minimal issues. But the main difference is that business owners are more willing to invest in the buildings that need work, like the ones here in our area, as they see their investments will pay off. The same can be true for our area, especially if we are one of the first in Wake County to create a true social district. With a more vibrant downtown, Zebulon would be able to better position itself for greater partnerships and alliances for further development in our area. If we strive to be the best, we will align ourselves with higher-end developers that would help with road improvements, infrastructure upgrades, proper land development, and provide better town amenities. If our town is serious and wants to create a more vibrant downtown, positioning itself to bring in more businesses to reawaken the forgotten buildings of our area, we need to be working to provide above and beyond services. Approving the proposed amendment is only the start. Currently, there are other surrounding towns that have implemented these types of spaces. We have already lost businesses to those more developed, cohesive towns due to our lack of foresight. We need to focus on what makes our community unique, diverse, and equitable for all of our futures. Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. John Sappel, representing the Zebulon Chamber of Commerce. I'll give the Chamber of Commerce's address. It's 815 North Arundel Avenue, Zebulon. Just speaking briefly, a few things that I would add. Some will be reinforcing what's already been stated, but a few final points regarding the impact, the positive impact that the proposed changes would present. You keep hearing the phrase vibrant downtown. That is something that our town has planned for and has sought for a number of years. We are working towards that, and we're realizing it at this time. You see in our room here, we have a number of proprietors that have invested hundreds of thousands, and I'd say millions of dollars, in establishments downtown that contribute to a vibrant downtown. As far as the proposed changes are concerned, if you think about our coming out of the pandemic, how did most of the businesses in commercial districts, mostly historic commercial districts, survive? As they survived as the seating was extended to the public areas, and that period of recovery is not necessarily over for these businesses. By extending seating onto public areas, you're also expanding the footprint for what these establishments are, for the number of people that these establishments are able to serve. You are increasing their revenue, which goes back into supporting the investments that they have made. And most of these businesses are small businesses. In fact, I'd say in Zebulon, all of them are small businesses. And any way that we can support them in being able to increase and sustain and stabilize their revenue is of significance. In addition to the restaurants, the bars that we tend to think of in terms of the impact that this decision makes, it extends beyond that. The restaurants, the bars, the distillery, they are what draw people downtown. But as people come downtown, you also have commercial businesses such as Eastway Collective, soon to be Rustic Phoenix. And as these establishments draw, the restaurants, the bars, the distillery, draw people downtown, they will linger and then support these other local establishments. So the economic impact goes much further than just the restaurants, the bars, the distillery, and contributes to creating a truly vibrant downtown. So just to think about this as being beyond what we have presently, thinking beyond those that serve food, those that serve alcohol, but expanding the footprint, expanding potential revenue, expanding just that community atmosphere out into the public areas is what will contribute to a vibrant, dynamic downtown and revived, restored commercial district.
My name is Dominic Schilling. I live at 207 Nostalgia Lane, here in Zebulon, and I am speaking purely as a private citizen. I don't honestly have anything maybe major different to add to what you've already heard, other than I can tell you as a private citizen, we happened to go out to the fall line Saturday night to watch the game, and a group of friends of myself. And we had a wonderful time, and we all commented that this is something that Zebulon has been needing for a long time. So I would wholeheartedly support the amendment to the ordinance, for sure, for that reason and for the other reasons you've heard. I can, again, as a private citizen, tell you I observed many boxes of Pizza Moria Pizza coming into the fall line, so I'm sure they did a great business that night. I have visited Old Raleigh and seen Mexican food coming in there from the surrounding Mexican restaurants. I visited Nino and had similar experiences there too. And by the way, all these places I visited were purely on a research basis. But I've also done some research in Nighttown and Wendell and Raleigh and other surrounding towns, and I've been able to sit outside and enjoy a beer or a glass of wine. Never witnessed any problems. And I could foresee in Zebulon, I've got several friends who have commented to me recently that I really need to start playing disc golf because Zebulon's got a wonderful disc golf course. And they would like to come on a nice day, play a round of disc golf, and then be able to go hang out and maybe have a beer or a glass of wine instead of smoking. So, again, I would firmly support the amendment to the ordinance. And I think I'm allowed to ask a question as well. My question would just be, if you did allow sidewalk seating, whether it's for consumption of alcoholic beverages or not, how would traffic, foot traffic getting on up and down the sidewalks be impacted in what we were planning today?
To the answer Dominic's question, we do have other provisions in both the Unified Development Ordinance as well as the Code of Ordinances that prohibits the full blocking of pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk. There's a portion that specifically requires an ADA accessible path be maintained in and around the sidewalk areas.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
retail spaces. One of them has been rented to Pinafore Boutique, which will be opening up Easter weekend. The former Barron's restaurant building has been rented to Uninhibited Tapas. One of the owners and chefs, Greg Goldberg, is here with us tonight, right over there. So please welcome him to Zebulon. I have spent some time looking at the ordinance amendment and asking a lot of questions because I didn't understand it. I looked at what some of the other small towns are doing, and I believe that the amendment should be passed for the immediate future, but not for the long range. If it passes, I'd like to see us take some additional steps. The first one is to make the citizens and the proprietors in this town aware of the ordinance changes in a friendly manner, educating and not reprimanding. I'm a rule follower. I want to know what the rules are and how they apply. I'd also like to ask the town to seriously examine the idea of a social district with established boundaries and guidelines, similar to what so many other small towns are doing in North Carolina and in other states. This ordinance amendment should not keep us from moving forward. As I'm sure you know, a social district will cause people to stay in Zebulon, shop local, buy local, eat local, which will increase our revenue to the town. And it'll also help us to achieve the goals from the Town of Zebulon Vision 2030. That is this strategic plan, which I'm sure that you recognize. The goals that are in here are to encourage a vibrant downtown, to revitalize downtown, to develop events and entertainment and cultural attractions, to draw people downtown, to promote more community events and festivals, to enhance and create more community gathering places. We've been talking about a vibrant downtown since I moved to Zebulon, and maybe even before that. I think it's just time, and it just makes sense for us to do everything we can to move it forward. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
I'd like to say a few words next if I could. I hope everyone's doing really well tonight. My name is Greg Goldberg. I'm the owner of Uninhibited Tapas Bar. Originally started in Raleigh right before the COVID shutdown, about 10 months. And we had a 3-year lease there. So I went through the whole 3 years there, and about halfway through, I knew I had to move my business. So I decided to do that. Of course, I apologize. So I decided to look at different options. I looked, further west. I looked, obviously, in Zebulon here. And I really fell in love with a couple things about this town. One of the things that I really loved about this town was the fact that it was moving forward at such an accelerated rate, but nobody outside the town knew it quite yet. And this was only a few months ago. So when I started saying, I'm thinking about moving to Zebulon, my restaurant, my whole thing, moving the whole thing. People were, well, Zebulon, you think? And we would talk about it. When I say it today, they say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. They're really building up. They're really moving forward. That was 4 months ago we're talking about, maybe 5 at the most. In that shorter period of time, I've already seen the common person in Raleigh already knows exactly what's going on here. They've heard all the stories, they know about the development of buildings, they know about the new homes and people moving here. I think anything that this community can do to move forward even further is going to be nothing but benefit to the entire community. We all understand more revenue, more taxes, that's wonderful. What I can tell you from 20 plus years experience in the restaurant industry is there are 2 things that get people in trouble when it comes to alcohol. One is over-serving people. You should never over-serve people. It's against the law, in fact. Very against the law. And that's really the main one. The other one is being open really late at night. So if you're open, and you can't be open past 2 anyway. But New York, for example, where I originally studied, you can be open until 4 in the morning. Well, nothing good happened between 2 and 4. Probably nothing good happened between midnight and 4, let's be honest. But the point is, opening a sidewalk something to that effect. It's not going to increase public drunkenness. It's not going to increase over-serving, because that is strictly controlled by the restaurant operation. We have entire trainings on this fact. Not only is the person that serves it liable, the bartender can be liable if that's in the line of sight of them, and they might have poured the drink and not have any idea what's going on. They are legally responsible to be paying attention, as well as the manager on duty, as well as myself as the proprietor. So we take it very seriously. We're not going to be serving underage people. We're not ever going to be over-serving. We pay a lot of attention to these kinds of things because it is a big revenue stream for us. We make a lot of money off of alcohol, let's be honest. And it's a very important part of our business. That having been said, I don't feel, from my experience personally, that opening up where it can be consumed is going to change whether folks are over-consuming. And I think that's really the main thing that I have thought about personally in regards to this. So, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Brown. Living at 3312 Basement Drive, Flipping Road. I'm living here 3 years now. I moved from Raleigh to Zebulon. I moved from Jamaica to America, and I'm here 18 and going on 19 years, all over the States. When I moved from Raleigh, me and my wife, we bought a home down there. I have a few concerns. From the Sheets gas station right there. When I'm coming from this way heading home, I pull into the Sheets, get some gas, turning out to go down on 96. Okay, there's a barrier right there. A car coming coming up the street from Bojangles. They don't get to the light. They need to go to the light to make that turn into the gas station and come around into the gas station. They don't go. A few guys don't go that way. They actually turn right off, cut off, and come right in. Make actually make a left turn, a illegal left turn into the gas station. I got 3 near misses there. So I definitely would like the mayor, and I spoke to a police officer on the way here, and he said that problem been there over a couple of years now, since the Sheets been there. And they brought it up, and there's nothing being done, you know. And I just definitely don't want to lose my life coming from work, go to the gas station, heading home, and somebody make a legal turn into the gas station on full speed coming in, and it's going to be a head-on collision. I heard there was an accident there a couple of years ago. We probably sit there for a while, hand out a lot of tickets, go to the court, and the tickets show up. Nobody yet paid penalty for making that illegal left turn at the gas station. So I definitely would like you to look into it, Mr. Mayor. I got your picture in my house right there on my kitchen. You guys walk the street, I go over there to the library, vote, and make sure I put my votes in. Commissioner Husser come around, I got all the information right here. So this is my first time in this town hall meeting, and I definitely will be coming back, you know. So I definitely would like you guys to look into that situation for me. All right, appreciate it all. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else wishes to speak? We have no one else wishes to speak in the public hearing, so I declare the public hearing closed. This will come back to the board for a later date for discussion, and I think it was mentioned that we may have other public hearings also to make sure we educate the public on how we go forward with these decisions. I think that's the most important thing. People just don't know what to do. So that's why we're having these public hearings to educate folks. Do I need a motion to close the public hearing? Okay. Public comment? Do we have any?
Nobody has signed up.
Nope, no one signed up for public comment? Okay. The consent.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Next, we will hear from planning, ordinance 2236, rezoning of East Old US 64 East Gannett.
Once again, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Tonight is a follow-up from a previous joint public hearing that was held in March regarding a rezoning for East Gannon at Old 264. To kind of recap you on what was discussed, the parcel in question is approximately 10 acres and is owned by Bun Farms Incorporated. Currently is zoned residential or suburban residential R2, and the applicant who is present tonight is proposing to zone it to heavy commercial HC. The future land use designation in our comprehensive land use plan does call for this to be rezoned or eventually to general commercial. Please note that this is a regular rezoning, unlike a lot of what comes before you, and not a conditional rezoning. To orient you to where the site is highlighted in red on the screen and is adjacent to an existing railroad as well as Old 264. There's the Walmart shopping center across the street, across from Gannon. And then the Murphy Express gas station is in front of that. And it's next door to Campbell Oil Company. As I noted, this property is currently zoned R2. The gray parcels surrounding that are zoned heavy industrial, and then the red parcels across the street within the Walmart shopping complex, as well as the corner of Gannon Old 264, is zoned HC. So the proposed zoning is consistent with the surrounding land uses. The nearest residential rezoning is currently occupied by a non-residential use in this location, and then there's residential properties located on the opposite side of the railroad tracks. The comprehensive plan does call for this area to be general commercial on the future land use designation map. And the primary types that would typically be included within this designation would be commercial retail, offices, as well as service. The transportation plan, which was adopted last summer, does call for several improvements to be located adjacent to this parcel. The blue line shown here on Gannon up until the intersection would be a 2-lane Old 264 would be a 4-lane median divided roadway. This would include curb, gutter, sidewalk, as well as 2 lanes of traffic in each direction, and either a landscape median or a turning lane, depending upon the context of the development. And then the blue lines, which is East Gannon, for their frontage located right here, would be a 2-lane divided, either with a turn lane or a landscape median. That does change to 4-lane once it gets past the applicant's property. The applicant would be responsible for making these improvements from the center line to over to where their property line is as part of their development process. The planning board did meet to discuss this item on March 14th. During that meeting, there was a motion to approve, but that failed due to a tie vote. There was a second motion to deny the request, but that motion failed because of a lack of a second. As a result, the planning board does not have a formal recommendation regarding this matter. If the board were to recommend approval or were to approve the proposed rezoning, staff does have a consistency statement based on the compatibility and consistency with the comprehensive land use plan. The applicant is also present and is willing to address any questions regarding the uses and activities that you may have. That concludes my presentation. I'm available if you have any questions.
Questions from any of the board? Comments?
And as I noted, the applicant is present.
I'd like to speak to the applicant, please. The applicant.
The mayor.
Good.
Question, I pretty much just want to know the traffic issues, what do they see dealing with the traffic?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
A question about the traffic, what are they looking to do with the traffic impact analysis over there? When and if they would do one?
Well, that's going to be dependent upon what uses and activities go in there. The middle location is proposed to be a medium box retail establishment, so I'm not certain what the traffic count would be. However, the applicant has indicated, and they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but a gas station possibly right at the corner. Depending upon the traffic count, that would warrant a transportation impact analysis, and then depending upon what the town contract engineer determines based on that analysis, additional improvements could be required at the time of construction drawing approval.
And if additional improvements are required, who will be responsible for those additional improvements?
The developer will be responsible for any additional traffic improvements, including the ones that are located on the transportation plan, as well as any that are dictated by the transportation impact analysis.
Thank you.
With that said, is it correct me if I'm wrong, they would only be allowed to take care of half of the street from one half of the road back to that facility, that area, correct?
From center line to property line on their side is their responsibility, unless for particular intersections are required to be enhanced based on the traffic or transportation impact analysis. Then they'll have to expand the scope of their improvements to meet those requirements.
So there will be a cost on the town as well. If we were to rezone that part, they would protect that. There will be a cost on the town, correct?
No, the developer will be responsible for any of the traffic improvements associated with the proposed development from center line to property line as outlined in the transportation plan, as well as anything in the transportation impact analysis. Future development on the adjacent parcels across the street will be responsible for their 50% of the right-of-way expansion.
Any other questions? Did any of the folks want to speak?
Good evening, Mayor York and Commissioners. My name is Ethan Conley, 120 Winchon, Port Raleigh, North Carolina. As mentioned, we're here to rezone the parcel at the intersection of East Cannon and Old 264, which is currently zoned residential. I don't want to tell you guys anything you don't already know, so, but just wanted to kind of restate the facts. The parcel is currently surrounded on either side by industrial, and directly across the street by the heavy commercial zone where the Walmart shopping center is. I'm sure everyone's familiar with it, but, you know, we spoke with the planners difficult part of doing this so far is, you know, we work with these national retailers, and the first thing is they look at this parcel and they say, guys, it's zoned residential. You know, what are we talking about here? Once it's rezoned, let's talk. Tractor's really stepped up, and we're ready to go to lease with them once we get the support of the commissioners in the town. I don't know if there's any other questions that we can answer for you guys, but certainly, you know, the road improvements, the traffic studies, we're gonna have to work with North Carolina DOT. Other than that, you know, like I said, it's been 10 years. We put a lot of time into this, and anxious to move forward with it.
Yes. My name's Matt Bowder, 4006 Barrett Drive in Raleigh. Just to follow up a little bit on what Ethan had mentioned. Obviously, this area is a corridor into Zebulon, and we want to preserve the entrance into Zebulon that this would present. We think we can mirror a lot of the commercial that's in the area and complement that. We do know there's a lot of residents moving to the town of Zebulon, and with the growth of residents, we also need the growth of retail establishments to support this. Obviously, Ethan mentioned Tractor Supply, and that's a regional type retailer that has a big draw that could bring a lot of the commercial development to the town that desperately needs. Even hearing earlier with, about the downtown and the restaurants, you can see there's a need for more vibrancy and commercial uses within the town. We want to do this in an area that complements other retail that's not straining it around. We have a retail corridor that town on their future land use plan calls to be retail. And so we just want to fill a gap there. It's not going to be residential, it's in the middle of retail, so this would be the best, we think, use for the property. Anything else? Feel free to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No other questions, comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2022-36 to rezone Old US 64 East Gannon Avenue?
I move we approve ordinance 2022-36, specifically the amendment to zoning map for address 0 Old US 264, PIN 27059-73068.
Second.
As a point of clarification, North Carolina General Statute 160D does require that it be referenced back to the comprehensive land use plan, and staff does suggest including the consistency statement that's shown on the screen into the motion.
I therefore amend my motion, approve East Gannon Avenue, Old US 264 rezoning upon the consistency with the Town of Zebulon Comprehensive Land Use Plan, in that the heavy commercial district is compatible with the future land use designation of general commercial and all other applicable plans.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Motion passes. Next, we hear fire EMS stations, memorandum of understanding, site evaluation.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Commissioners. At your last work session, we discussed fire EMS station locations. I left with a little bit of homework, so I want to report back on my homework and kind of catch us up. There were a couple of questions that some of you asked. One of them being, can there be tax advantages for sellers who sell at a lower price? Specifically, the question was surrounding if we were to purchase a property and that property was sold to the town for a discounted price, could that seller get some tax advantages for that? And the answer to that question is yes. If property owners sell the property to the town, they may qualify for a charitable deduction if the property is sold at less than fair market value. The important part to note of that's not less than selling price or less than listing price, but less than fair market value. So that was the answer to that one. One of the second question was would Wake County be willing to share cost if the town purchased some land? We talked to Wake County staff about that, and they were open to the possibility. They probably had more questions than they did answers relative to how much their share would be and that kind of thing. So some of that would have to be worked out. Could it fit in their funding model, for example? They would want to make sure that their total project input remained at less than that 49% or less, as they had already agreed to. So they wanted to make sure they did that. But so the answer is maybe, if that's, I know that's kind of a vague answer, but there is some possibilities there. And the last question that I was asked to look into was there flexibility of the sellers of the option B property? We talked about the property that the town already owns, and then a second option. Was there any flexibility in the seller's price on that option B? We were inquired and were told that given the prime location of that property and the current real estate market, that there would probably little discount on the listing price. They have received quite a few offers and continue to negotiate different offers, and at this point, they would not be interested in a considerable discount, if you would, on the option, on selling the property. So for that, there's the report, and I'll be glad to follow up with any questions you may have. What we've prepared for you tonight is kind of picks up where we left off. Should you choose to adopt the memorandum of understanding, we've provided that for you. Or should you decide that you want to do more exploratory work on the option B site, we've prepared a budget amendment to begin doing that. It is important to note that before we could begin any of that work, we would have to enter into some type of interest or intent with the property owner to begin negotiations with that property owner prior to doing any of that due diligence for soil samples and that kind of thing. So that would have to occur before we could begin that. So with that, I stand there and answer any questions you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
So in the memorandum of understanding, under 2C, the second paragraph, I'll give you a second to pull that up.
Yes.
This is talking about the property that was purchased from GSK, correct?
That is correct.
So does this paragraph need to be modified since that property has already had those surveys, geotechnical investigations, environmental studies at all? Does that need to be changed then, since all of that information has now been compiled and that is complete?
I would I'll give you my thoughts, and then I'll be sure to refer to those who may know more, whether it be Eric or either refer it back to facility and design. But paragraph, section C does talk about that the town is separately conducting those actions, and you're right. At the time this was drafted, those were all in the works, and they have all been completed. So it does outline that that's our responsibility to do, and we've done it, but it could very easily be updated to say those have been completed. I definitely see what you're referring to there.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Vernon?
I expect that the entire memorandum will be updated to reflect the current state of affairs.
So then am I correct in understanding that technically we can't move forward with this current memorandum of understanding until it's been updated?
No, ma'am, the board could if they desired. The idea here is that you approve of it in principle and would allow the staff to make such other modifications as they need to bring it into final form.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Just one quick question here. So if we wanted to see the finalized the memorandum of understanding before it's signed, how would we go about doing that? Will we postpone it, table it, and come back to it until we can all see the final version of the?
What I would expect the board to do tonight, if it's inclined to approve this, if it's inclined to approve it, that's the board's vote, that they would do that with direction to the staff to make such modifications and negotiate the final draft and then bring it back to the board for final approval. That's what I would expect.
I'll speak on my behalf. I personally would like to see the finalized before we approve it. finalizing more?
I'm actually ready to move forward with a memorandum of understanding. I think that we've put this on hold for a while, but I absolutely understand where Commissioner Miles is coming from. But I do think that if we give staff direction to make those updates and then come back to us for final approval, that's what you were saying, Mr. Vernon.
Okay.
I think that that's reasonable, just so that we can start this ball rolling finally.
Okay.
So I think that I am going to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-35, Lisa? Or no, that's the
It's a memorandum of understanding.
do I just say memorandum of understanding, since in our packet they were kind of combined?
What the motion would probably be is that you want the memorandum of understanding to be updated to reflect all the changes and be brought back, not
Okay.
approval, because otherwise you're approving it as written.
Okay, well, then I move to instruct staff to update the memorandum of understanding to reflect any changes that need to be made, and then to bring it back before the board.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I second that.
All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, new business, board appointments.
Hi, we have had several people move out of town and had to resign from our planning board. So we currently have 3 in-town vacancies, but we only have 1 application on file. Dominic Schilling from 207 Nostalgia Lane is interested in serving on the planning board. He spoke earlier tonight. And it's before the board to determine if they would like to appoint him to serve a 3-year term with the planning board.
And that's the extent of one of the terms that's been vacated?
This is one of the terms that is actually, you're giving them like 2 months, extra months, because it's a vacated term that was due to come up
In 2 months.
in 2 months since
Yeah.
we had this, and they have vacancies. We still have, still looking for people to serve on that particular board as well.
Is there a motion to appoint Dominic Snelling to the planning board?
I move to appoint Dominic Schilling to the planning board.
I second.
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 We have a motion second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Welcome aboard.
Just for the record, at this point, I don't advocate alcoholic consumption. But that could change.
Board work session.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the board. Just as some background, while I know this is in your staff report, this is for the audience here as well as those that are watching on TV. Municipalities have essentially 4 methods of raising the money necessary to finance capital projects. So they can use their current revenue. So as an example, approximately 5-6 years ago, that board raised taxes as a way to generate revenue to have a dedicated funding stream to go to paving streets and building greenways, as well as replenishing our emergency vehicle fleet. Savings, you've heard from the auditor last month, in fact, that you have a very healthy general fund balance, so you can dip into those savings, and we'll talk about at your work session about how much savings you can dip into to stay both compliant with your general fund balance policy, but also how much you can dip into and still maintain your excellent credit rating. The third example of raising money is through gifts or grants, and so as you have experienced recently, you received a congressional appropriation from Representative Price's office of $700,000 to go to improvement of downtown, specifically alleyway activations and associated projects. And then the fourth way is you can borrow money, and there are several ways to borrow money, but general obligation bonds, so named because they obligate the municipality to pledge whatever amount of property tax is necessary to pay the debt, are the most popular way of borrowing money. And when I say whatever amount of property tax, essentially what the state of North Carolina is asking you to do is, are you willing to raise taxes to pay for the loan payments? So staff has provided an overview of the general obligation bonds process over a series of work sessions over approximately 4 months. And if the board is interested in taking the next step in placing a bond referendum on the ballot for November 2nd, 2022, which is Election Day, they must adopt a notice of intent no later than their regular meeting on May 2nd, 2022. The notice of intent serves as the town's intent to apply to the local government commission to issue bonds. So a side note about the local government commission, that's a board that's appointed by a governor, mayor pro tem, as well as Speaker of the House, that was created as a result of the Great Depression, where North Carolina had the most municipalities of any state to go into default. So because of that experience, there's a commission that oversees whether towns can take on debt and if they've done so properly. So this notice of intent that I've talked about, it's required to state the board's intent to file an application with the LGC, just putting everyone on notice that they're going to apply to the LGC to consider approval of a bond issue. The second is to describe in brief general terms what is the purpose of the bond. So is it for roads, is it for parks, is it for fire stations? The third part of the notice of intent is the maximum amount of bonds to be issued, so the dollar amount. And then the fourth, this is part of the state statute, is there's a provision in the notice of intent that allows any citizen or taxpayer within the municipality to file objections on the bond issuance within 7 days after the publication. So if the board's interested, they need to adopt a notice of intent. The only issue is the board has not determined the terms or the amount of a bond issuance, which is requirements 2 and 3 of the notice of intent. So the discussion before the board tonight is this. First, is the board interested in placing a bond referendum on the ballot for November 2nd, 2022? If the answer to that is yes, then the subsequent action we need from the board is they must vote to schedule a meeting to determine the terms and amount of a bond issue sometime before May's regular meeting. And staff's recommendation would be to be no later than a week before that regular meeting, would be April 25th. If the board is not ready, wants to take into consideration a fuller list of projects, give staff a little bit more time to develop the costs associated with projects, and they're not ready to move forward with a ballot measure on a bond referendum for November 2nd, 2022, then no further action is required. So the question before the board tonight is if they're interested in placing a bond referendum on the ballot for November 2nd, 2022, and we stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? We could add this to the work session on April 21st.
Yes. We may want you, and we can come back and talk to you at your joint public hearing, we may want you to follow a trend that you've done recently and start that work session earlier, possibly starting at 4, because that work session is going to have plenty on it, and this would just add that much more. But yes, to answer your question.
I don't feel comfortable moving forward with any kind of bond referendum right now because we don't have any numbers from staff discussing what kind of projects and how the amounts to fund whatever projects. And so I think that it would be inappropriate for us to vote to move forward with a referendum at this time.
I pretty much the same. I agree with that as well.
Okay. Well then, do we want to discuss it in a work session?
Could we not start this but not decide not to have it on the referendum or not have a vote in November? In other words, we can start this process and don't have to execute it. It doesn't cost us a dime, just our work.
I have no problem asking staff to come before us with a list of projects and their associated costs so that we can start kicking that around in a work session. And if it seems like we're ready to move forward once we've talked about it, then that's one thing. But I don't feel comfortable doing that right now, tonight.
Should we at least add it to our work session on the 21st so we can have this dialogue?
Sure.
I say we add it to it.
Sure.
I say we-
So can we instruct staff to do that? Can we
Yeah,
ask you to put that on?
we've received the instructions we need.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, election of Mayor Pro Tem. Background? Do we-
This is entirely a board action, so whoever the board would like to make a motion and vote on who they would like to select as their mayor pro tem.
I would like to nominate Quentin Miles.
Can we open the floor for nominations?
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me?
Yeah, the floor is open for nominations.
And I would like to nominate Quentin Miles for mayor pro tem.
I second Quentin
We-
Miles. Oh, do we second?
We don't need a second.
Oh,
but
well, like I was saying,
Yeah,
I
we're
agree.
Yes,
we're gonna, I guess I didn't get a chance to explain. We're gonna get nominations and then we're gonna do a ballot.
Oh, there you go.
I'd like to nominate Larry Laux.
Okay? Any other nominations? Okay? So the nomination is closed, and the clerk will issue ballots, and after you give your written,
Your ballots are blank. You need to write the names in because I didn't know who was going to be nominated. And then you need to vote and sign, please.
I don't vote. Everyone completed their ballots? To the clerk.
Commissioner Shannon Baxter voted for Larry Laux. Commissioner Quentin Miles voted for Quentin Miles. Commissioner Beverly Clark voted for Quentin Miles. Commissioner Jessica Harrison voted for Quentin Miles. Commissioner Larry Laux voted for Larry Laux. Commissioner Quentin Miles has the majority vote.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Board comments. Start with, oh no,
Mayor, we need to.
did we have
We got the
something?
items, yes.
Item, I'm sorry.
Information request.
So I have several requests for action or information. First, Carolyn Spencer from Republican Ross's office has reached out asking for appropriation requests, and I would like to ask staff to investigate what appropriation requests the town might have so that we can go ahead and fill out that application. If you need me to forward Carolyn Spencer's request for information, I can do that. Secondly, I would like to suggest that we add, maybe not into this work session, but perhaps a subsequent work session, a reassessment of permitted uses for the heavy commercial district, because I think there were some concerns that are easily alleviated if we just tweak what our permitted uses are. Thirdly, I would like to instruct the town manager, or ask the town manager, to create a social media policy for the town. Recently, there have been a couple of posts from some of the town affiliated Facebook pages that I consider to be a misuse of town resources and extremely inappropriate. I have printouts of those if I need to hand those out, but we definitely need to have a policy that makes sure that only town business is discussed on town websites and social media pages, because it dilutes the effectiveness of how the town's social media accounts are perceived if we are using this as a different type of communication tool for perhaps personal agendas. And I have a copy of that for you if you'd like to see it. I would also like to request a list of what ARPA funds the town requested from Wake County. I know that we had a discussion where I made sure to inform the town manager that Wake County was asking for ARPA fund requests, and I just haven't heard what was actually asked for. And then finally, I would like to get a breakdown from perhaps Michael Clark or whomever it's easiest to get this from, of the 400 Zebulon residents that responded to the social district survey. I'd like to see those response percentages, please. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor, let me at least answer one of those. The ARPA funds from Wake County, they were restricted to nonprofits. So the town of Zebulon would not have been an applicant. The only municipality that I am aware of that received those ARPA funds was Wendell went in as a minority partnership with a nonprofit. Maybe it was a church. But those ARPA funds were restricted to nonprofits.
Any other comments? Commissioner Miles?
No comments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No comments, yes, sir.
We still, now we go to board comments. We go back, start with you,
With
Shannon.
me? Okay. So the town of Zebulon has quite a few wonderful things happening this month that I'd like to make you aware of, but by all means, this is not an exhaustive list. Please see the town website for a full list of everything that we have to offer. But there's a teen egg decorating event coming up this Thursday, April 7th. The Zebulon Artisan Market is going to be launching on April 23rd, right here in the municipal grounds. I and a couple of other commissioners are going to be attending an event called City Vision in Wilmington towards the end of the month, where we're going to be interacting with people from municipalities all across the state, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunities that that's going to provide. And finally, the 21st annual charity golf tournament that benefits the Boys and Girls Club is happening April 29th. And so if you're interested, you can certainly contact the Zebulon Golf Course for more information, or the Boys and Girls Club, I'm sure. Thanks.
Commissioner Miles?
I'd personally like to first thank all the citizens that came out tonight to talk on HB 890. Greatly appreciated to hear the citizens' input. Second, I'll let everybody know that the Mudcats this Friday night have the opening, and the mayor will be throwing out the first pitch, so looking forward to that. And once again, I personally like to thank the GFL employees and Brandon Bulger for saving the life of a citizen. And once again, unity through community.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and it was one of our best town board meetings with the participation of our citizens. It was really nice.
I want to thank everyone that participated in the St. Patrick's Day celebration event. It was really nice. My family enjoyed it, and I heard a lot of other families that were saying how much they enjoyed it. So thank you to everyone who put in the hard work to make that event a success. And I would also like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We appreciate seeing your faces in the gallery. Thank you.
Ditto on St. Patrick's Day party. Everyone who involved in that, we did a great job. I'm looking forward to that next year. Also on your social calendar, remember Springfest on May 14th, which is a Saturday. As a matter of fact, Windale's having their Meet on Main on Friday night, so you get two parties back to back. And final, go Heels.
That part.
I'd just like to also thank the folks that came out for the public comments. We certainly appreciate it. We hope we have other discussions that involve citizen engagement, because that's how we learn to form policies and shape the direction of things that you want. It's not what we want, because we are elected officials, and we are here for you and what you want to see in this town. So thank you again for coming out and your input, and hopefully we'll have many more discussions to have public engagement, so that everybody is aware of what's going on and have some knowledge of how we try to move forward on these issues. They're just growing pains, that's all, just growing pains, and together we can accomplish all of this. And so thank you for coming out. We got manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a schedule of some upcoming meetings to give some details. So next Monday, April 11th, will be a joint public hearing. Joint public hearings are a joint meeting of the governing board and the planning board. So Mr. Schilling's getting pressed into service early. They'll be considering utility allocation policy, which is the incentivizing or the disincentivizing of development you want or don't want to see. There's also a couple of text amendments for exciting things like dumpster enclosures and landscaping around detention ponds. Thursday, April 14th, will be the board's mini retreat. They'll be heading off to Rose Hill Plantation. Given that this is a newer board, a younger board, they'll be working on developing strong relationships amongst themselves as well as with the staff, and they'll also be identifying shared priorities to update the tactical actions of their strategic plan. So if you look at the strategic plan that's already been pointed out tonight by Ms. Pierce in the back, is the tactical actions that were adopted back in 2018 when the strategic plan was first adopted. Many of those tactical actions have been accomplished. Some of them need to be reconsidered, and so this will be the opportunity for the board to identify what are the next ones or to evaluate which ones need to be reconsidered. Thursday, April 21st, as Commissioner Laux was mentioning, the work session, what we had already had on the agenda was this is going to be your last pre-budget presentation where you will hear the last of the operating expenditures that are being considered for the budget that will be presented to you in May. And then you will also receive from Mr. Fitz the revenue expectations, meaning the revenue streams, how they're looking as far as property tax, sales tax, and the other sundry revenue streams that come into the town. You'll revisit your fund balance so you can once again get a sense of how much fund balance you have to stay within your policy as well as to maintain your credit rating. And we'll also share with you information if you are interested in raising taxes, how much revenue that generates to go to particular projects. The last thing I want to mention before I recognize Finance Director Bobby Fitz to share some budget transfers is the town pre-COVID, now we're starting to get back into this, we have tried to have 2 team building exercises with all staff. It's an effort to crush silos that were prevalent here 5, 6 years ago and get staff working with each other, and so we've had some team building exercises. The last one we did was back in the last week of March, and we used that opportunity to recognize some service anniversaries with some of our employees. And just a quick recap, public service requires public servants, people that are dedicated to making an impact in communities, and people that are oriented to making an impact in people's lives. And longevity goes towards that impact, and the longer someone is here, they can pass along efficiencies and lessons learned to those that follow, but also they can magnify their effectiveness because the things that they accomplish build upon things that they accomplish in years to come. So we recognize several employees. 5-year anniversaries was Officer Josh Manning of our police department, Officer Jordan Perry of our police department, and Joe Beck out of our Parks and Recreation department. Celebrating 10 years with us, Corbin Johnson of Public Works, and then 15 years with us, 2 representatives from our police department within the detective division, Edwin Collette, and on the patrol division, Jason Bridges. A lot of those employees, they are shift workers, so they're not with us tonight, but one employee who is here with us and has dedicated 25 years of his life to work for the town of Zebulon. I might add, longer than some of our employees have been alive, Finance Director Bobby Fitz. We could recognize Bobby Fitz for 25 years of service. And at the end of the budget transfers from Mr. Fitz, that concludes the manager's report.
I'll make this as quick as possible. It's almost tip-off for the game. I know everybody's got to get home. As Joe said, I have a handful of budget transfers, which I just gave out with a little bit of explanation for each. I won't give the explanation for each. I'll just read the ones verbally that we've done. In Public Works and Property and Project Management, moved $3,510 from Community Center and Maintenance, Building Maintenance, $260 of that to Municipal Complex Natural Gas, $750 of that to Water and Sewer, and the remaining $2,500 is to part-time salaries. Moved $2,500 from salaries overtime, $1,810 of that from insurance and bonds, and $690 from professional services. Moved $500 from the LED lighting conversion project to Public Works Natural Gas. Moved $2,000 from janitorial contract service to part-time salaries. And then in Operations Division of Public Works, moved $2,500 from salaries to salaries overtime. And in Police, moved $5,000 from salaries, $3,500 of that to salaries overtime, and the other $1,500 to part-time salaries. And finally, in Fire, moved $5,000 from insurance and bonds to vehicle maintenance. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I want to understand a little bit, 2,000 for the summer part-time staff, what is that consist of?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question.
The 2,000 for the summer part-time staff, I just want to understand what did we hire? Just kind of curious.
Oh, that's mowing and landscaping services at town properties.
So that's outside of public works, and we hired somebody additional?
Right. No, I mean for part-time salaries in our public works.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Now we're going to move into our closed session.
I move to enter into closed session as permitted by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A, 3, and 6 for the purpose of consulting with our attorney and personnel discussion.
I second.
Motion passes. Thanks everyone for coming out.
Is there a vote?
Vote.
Yo, all in favor?